Captain Vextor pressed his clawed hands against the cold metal console of his ship. The Quantum Dawn had been traveling through deep space for months, and today they found something that made no sense. His science officer Thalen stood beside him with her blue skin glowing brighter than usual, a sign she was confused or scared. "Sir, look at these readings," she said, pointing at the holographic display floating between them. "There's a species out there that's moving faster than anyone should be able to move." The display showed dozens of star systems, each one marked with strange symbols. These symbols belonged to something called humans. In just 1 year, these humans had built colonies on 17 different planets. 17. Most alien species took centuries just to figure out how to leave their homeworld properly. "That's impossible," Vextor muttered, his large eyes scanning the data again and again. "Even we Zephyrians needed 300 years to colonize our first 10 systems, and were considered fast learners." Thalen nodded quickly. "Exactly, and look at their ships, Captain. Our sensors show they're using basic fusion engines and simple metal hulls. It's like they built their spaceships in a garage somewhere, but somehow they're moving between stars like they're just driving to the grocery store." The captain walked to the large window of his bridge and stared out at the endless stars. His people, the Zephyrians, had been exploring space for over 2,000 years. They had quantum-fold drives that could bend space itself. They had computers that could think faster than most living beings. Yet these humans were making them look slow and clumsy. "Run the analysis again," he ordered. "Maybe our sensors are broken." While the aliens worried and checked their equipment, something very different was happening on a human ship called the Soul's Pride. Captain Li Min sat in his comfortable chair, drinking coffee from a simple ceramic mug. He looked completely relaxed, like someone watching a boring movie. His communications officer, Park Jisoo, was listening to the alien transmissions through her headphones. She had been doing this job for 5 years, and alien confusion always made her smile a little. "Captain, the Zephyrians are running their 3rd diagnostic check," she reported. "They still can't believe how fast we're expanding. Should we maybe slow down a bit? Pretend to struggle more?" Min took another sip of his coffee and shook his head. "No, Jisoo. It's time they started asking better questions. We've been playing the role of confused newcomers for too long." Jisoo looked puzzled. "But sir, isn't that the whole point? We're supposed to look primitive and harmless." "We are," Min replied. "But every species needs to go through this phase. The Zephyrians are smart enough to handle some confusion. Besides, our expansion schedule is actually quite conservative compared to what we could really do." The truth was, humans had been playing a very long game. For thousands of years, they had been carefully watching every alien species in the galaxy. They studied how each species developed, how they thought, how they reacted to new things. And they had become very, very good at pretending to be something they weren't. Back on the Zephyrian ship, more reports were coming in. Scout vessels from across the galaxy were sending the same impossible data. Humans weren't just in 17 systems, they were everywhere. They had somehow spread across 3 different spiral arms of the galaxy at the same time. "Captain," Thalen said, her voice shaking slightly, "I think we need to contact the Galactic Confederation about this. These humans, they're not following any of the rules." Vextor knew she was right. Every civilization in galactic history had followed the same basic pattern. First, they learned to build simple rockets. Then they figured out how to reach their nearest star. After that, they spent centuries slowly, carefully expanding system by system. It was natural law, like gravity or the speed of light. But humans seemed to have skipped all the hard parts. They appeared to communicate instantly across impossible distances. Their ships moved in perfect coordination without any visible command structure. They were terraforming entire planets in decades instead of millennia. "Prepare a message for High Command," Vextor finally said. "Tell them we may have encountered something unprecedented, and tell them—" He paused, staring at the data one more time. "Tell them these humans might not be what they appear to be." As the message traveled through quantum channels towards Zephyrian space, Captain Min finished his coffee and stood up from his chair. He walked to his own window and looked out at the stars, the same stars that humans had been quietly watching. Over for far longer than any alien species could imagine. Jisoo, he said softly, increase our expansion rate by 20% next month. It's time to give them something really interesting to think about. 3 months had passed since the Zephyrians first discovered something was wrong with humanity. Now the biggest meeting in galactic history was about to begin on Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Confederation. The Crystal Amphitheater was packed with representatives from 47 different alien species. Some breathed methane, others needed extreme cold, and a few could only survive in high-pressure environments. Special atmosphere bubbles surrounded each delegate, making the massive hall look like a collection of floating soap bubbles, each one containing a very worried alien. High Counselor Zethra of the ancient Vorthon Empire stood at the center podium. Her people were considered the wise elders of the galaxy. They had been exploring space for over 15,000 years, longer than almost anyone else. When the Vorthons called an emergency meeting, everyone listened.
Fellow beings, Zethra began, her voice echoing through translation devices in dozens of languages, we face something that shouldn't exist. These humans have somehow established colonies in over 50,000 star systems. The reaction was
immediate and explosive. Counselor Kreven from the Hegemony, a species that looked like giant crabs with 4 arms, slammed all his limbs against his speaking platform so hard it cracked. That's a lie, he shouted. Nobody expands that fast. Our own empire took 12,000 years to reach 10,000 systems, and we never stopped expanding. Other delegates began talking at once, their voices creating a chaos of different languages and angry clicking, buzzing, and growling sounds. Some species walked out of their atmosphere bubbles to gesture wildly with tentacles, wings, or claws. Ambassador Wextai from the Crystalline Consortium stood up, her body glowing bright red with disbelief. Honorable Counselor, surely your data is corrupted. Even if these humans started expanding the moment they discovered fire, they couldn't achieve such numbers. It violates every law of civilization development we know. But Zethra had brought proof. Holographic displays materialized around the amphitheater, showing star maps with tiny human settlements marked in blue dots. The dots weren't just scattered. Randomly, they formed perfect patterns across multiple galactic arms as if someone had planned the entire expansion with mathematical precision. The evidence comes from our best scout ships, Zethra continued. Independent verification from 12 different species confirms the same impossible reality. These humans aren't just fast. They're doing things that our science says cannot be done. While 47 alien species argued and panicked on Nexus Prime, Director Kim Dae-ho sat in a simple office orbiting Earth's moon. His workspace looked ordinary, just a desk, a chair, and a few monitors showing various data streams. But those monitors were displaying live feeds from every major alien government in the galaxy. His colleague, Dr. Choi Hye-jin, sat nearby with a tablet, reviewing statistical reports like someone checking the weather forecast. She looked up from her screen and smiled. The Confederation is finally starting to notice, she said casually. Their mathematicians are having nervous breakdowns trying to figure out how we coordinate 50,000 colonies without quantum communication networks. Dae-ho chuckled as he watched alien delegates shouting at each other on his screen. Let them theorize all they want. Remember when the Zephyrians spent 3 centuries trying to explain our expansion rate using their physics models? They published over 2,000 research papers before they gave up. What about the hegemony? Hye-jin asked. They're sending spy drones to our outer colonies. Let them look, Dae-ho replied. They'll find exactly what we want them to find. Human settlements that appear to be run by confused newcomers who somehow got lucky with their expansion. The truth was, humans had been watching this exact scenario play out dozens of times before. Every alien species went through the same stages when they discovered humanity's impossible empire. First came disbelief, then desperate investigation, then fear, and finally a slow, painful acceptance that everything they thought they knew about galactic civilization was wrong. Back in the Crystal Amphitheater, the arguments were getting louder. Some species demanded immediate military action against the humans. Others wanted to study them. A few suggested trying to learn their secrets through diplomatic contact. Order!
Order!
Zethra called out, her voice booming through the translation. Systems. We cannot make decisions based on fear and confusion. We need more information. But the information they had was already impossible to accept. Human ships moved through space without following standard navigation routes. They seemed to appear and disappear without using any detectable faster-than-light technology. Their colonies were supplied and coordinated across impossible distances, without any visible communication infrastructure. Most disturbing of all, every human settlement they investigated seemed to be run by ordinary people who acted like they were still figuring out basic space travel, yet somehow these confused beginners were accomplishing feats that made the galaxy's most advanced civilizations look primitive. As the alien council descended into chaos, Daeho turned off his monitors and stretched. Same old story, he said. To Heejin. Every species thinks they're the first to discover our little secret. Should we start phase 2? She asked. Not yet, he replied. Let them exhaust themselves with theories first. The longer they struggle to understand us with their current knowledge, the easier it'll be when they finally learn the truth. Admiral. Vorton stood on the bridge of the massive diplomatic vessel, Harmony's voice, staring at the tactical display with growing excitement. After months of preparation, the Galactic Confederation's first contact fleet was finally approaching what their intelligence teams believed was humanity's home system. The fleet was impressive, 12 ships representing every major alien civilization in the galaxy. Each vessel was painted in peaceful white and gold colors, broadcasting friendly messages in over 300 languages. This was how civilized species made first contact with newcomers to space. Admiral, we're approaching the outer edge of the system, reported Navigation Officer Thexpol, her 6 eyes focused on multiple screens at once. Sensors indicate moderate industrial development around the 3rd planet. Looks like a standard pre-quantum civilization. Vorton nodded with satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan. His species, the Altarians, had been making first contact with primitive civilizations for over 4,000 years. The process was always the same. Approach slowly, show peaceful intentions, offer guidance and technology in exchange for trade agreements and cultural exchange. Any defensive positions? He asked. Nothing significant, replied Weapons Officer Cavden. A few basic orbital platforms, some primitive satellites. Their largest ships appear to be simple cargo haulers. This should be straightforward. The Admiral smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Humans had been expanding incredibly fast, but that just meant they were naturally gifted at space travel. With proper Confederation guidance, they could become valuable members of galactic society within a few centuries. Prepare the standard first contact package, Vorton ordered. Basic mathematics, periodic table, peaceful intentions. Keep it simple. They're probably terrified of us. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system, expecting to see a few shocked human ships fleeing in panic. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by hundreds of vessels that seemed to have appeared from nowhere. These weren't the crude human ships their scouts had reported. These were sleek, elegant craft that made Confederation technology look bulky and primitive. The human vessels moved with perfect coordination, forming geometric patterns around the alien fleet that were both beautiful and clearly defensive. Where did they come from? Vorton demanded, his voice cracking slightly. Sensors showed empty space. Before anyone could answer, their communication systems activated with a clear transmission in perfect galactic standard, the diplomatic language, that took most species decades to learn properly. Welcome to the Sol system, said a calm female voice. I am Yoon Soo-jin, Earth's diplomatic representative. We appreciate your visit, but formal first contact requires scheduling through the appropriate galactic administrative channels. Admiral Vorton blinked all 4 of his eyes in confusion. Not only was this human speaking flawless galactic standard, but her accent suggested she had been speaking it for years. How was that possible? Greetings, Representative Yoon, he managed to say. I am Admiral Vorton of the Galactic Confederation. We have come to welcome humanity into the galactic community. We establish first contact protocols. There was a pause, and when Soo-jin responded, Fortin could swear he heard gentle amusement in her voice. "Of course, Admiral. However, given the scope of your request, you'll need to coordinate with the Human Colonial Administration. Their headquarters is located approximately 47,000 light-years from here, in the Kepler sector. Shall I arrange an appointment for you?" The Admiral's jaw dropped open. 47,000 light-years, that was halfway across the galaxy, and she was talking about it like it was just down the street. "Colonial Administration?" he repeated weakly. "How large is your territory?" "Oh, we have settlements in most habitable systems within this galactic supercluster," Sujin replied casually. "Nothing too extensive, just the basic colonization pattern most species follow. I'm sure you understand." Communication Officer Reta frantically checked her translation systems, convinced something was wrong. "Admiral," she whispered, "she's speaking in 17 different language variants simultaneously, including 2 that we classified as extinct civilizations." Meanwhile, on Earth's primary diplomatic station, Yoon Soo-jin sat in a comfortable chair, sipping green tea while maintaining perfect diplomatic composure. Her console showed detailed psychological profiles of each alien species in the visiting fleet, along with recommended interaction strategies developed over centuries of careful study. Her assistant, Kim Hyun-woo, monitored the aliens' bio readings and communication patterns. "They're showing classic signs of first contact shock," he reported quietly. "Heart rates elevated, stress hormones spiking. Should we tone down the revelation process?" "No," Sujin replied softly, still maintaining her pleasant conversation with the increasingly confused Admiral. "The Confederation is resilient. They can handle a little cognitive dissonance." Back on the alien flagship, Admiral Vorton was trying to process what he was hearing. "Representative Yoon, our intelligence indicates that humanity only achieved spaceflight recently. How do you have colonies across a galactic supercluster?" "Recently?" Sujin sounded genuinely puzzled. "I'm not sure what your sources told you, Admiral, but humans have been spacefaring for quite some time. Perhaps there was a miscommunication in your intelligence reports." The Admiral looked around his bridge at his equally confused crew. Every report, every observation, every piece of data they had collected suggested that humans were newcomers to space. Their ships looked primitive. Their technology seemed basic. Their expansion appeared chaotic and unplanned. But now he was talking to a human diplomat who spoke ancient languages fluently, commanded fleets that appeared from nowhere, and casually mentioned having colonies scattered across impossible distances. I think we may need to reschedule this first contact," Fortin said weakly. "Of course," Sujin replied warmly. "These things can be complicated. Should I have our scheduling department contact your people directly? They're quite efficient. They should be able to find a convenient time within the next few decades." As the confused alien fleet slowly retreated from the solar system, Sujin finished her tea and smiled. Every species reacted the same way during their first real encounter with humanity. The confusion was necessary. It helped prepare them for the much bigger revelations that would come later. "Kim," she said to her assistant, "mark this as a successful Phase 1 contact. They'll be back within 6 months with better questions." 6 months had passed since the Confederation's embarrassing first contact attempt with humanity. What followed was the most intensive investigation in galactic history. Every major alien civilization sent their best scientists, spies, and archaeologists to figure out what humanity really was. Dr. Wexara, the Confederation's top xenoarchaeologist, stood before another emergency council session. Her usually neat appearance looked disheveled, and her hands shook slightly as she activated the holographic displays. She had been working nonstop for months, and what she had discovered was keeping her awake at night. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. "I have analyzed artifacts from 43 different human settlements across the galaxy. The results challenge everything we thought we knew about civilization development." The council chamber fell silent. Representatives from dozens of species leaned forward in their atmosphere bubbles, waiting for answers that might Explain the impossible humans. The oldest human structures I've examined are over 2 million years old, Wexara continued, her words hitting the chamber like a physical blow. 2 million years. That predates our oldest recorded civilization, by millennia. Counselor Kreven of the hegemony stood up so fast he nearly broke his atmosphere seal. That's impossible. Our archaeological records show no evidence of any spacefaring civilization existing that long ago. That's what I thought too, Wexara replied grimly. But the carbon dating is consistent across multiple independent laboratories. The quantum decay signatures match. The geological layering confirms it. These aren't recent settlements made to look old. They are genuinely ancient. She activated another display showing construction techniques and materials. More disturbing is how these ancient human settlements show the same technological signatures as their modern colonies. It's as if their technology hasn't changed in millions of years. Not because they're primitive, but because they perfected it so long ago that they don't need to improve it. Meanwhile, deep in the Orion Arm on Kepler Station, Chief Administrator Nam Tae-woo was having his morning coffee while reviewing routine reports. The station looked like any busy office building. People walking around with tablets, meeting in conference rooms, dealing with the everyday bureaucracy of managing a large organization. His assistant, Lee Subin, knocked on his office door and entered with a concerned expression. "Sir, the Confederation archaeological teams are getting too close to the truth," she reported, placing a data pad on his desk. "They've started carbon dating our historical sites, and some of our field teams are getting nervous about maintaining timeline consistency." Tae-woo set down his coffee and reviewed the report. On his wall, massive displays showed the development progress of hundreds of alien civilizations across the galaxy. Each species had detailed charts tracking their technological advancement, social development, and readiness for various phases of contact with humanity. "The Zephyrians are at Phase 4 development," he noted, pointing to one chart. "The Vorthan Empire reached Phase 6 last century. The hegemony is still stuck at Phase C. They're too militaristic for their own good." Subin nodded. "But sir, if the Confederation discovers the full scope of our historical presence, they'll realize every major breakthrough in galactic civilization has been guided by us. They're not psychologically ready for that revelation." Tae-woo stood up and walked to his window, looking out at the busy space traffic around Kepler Station. Thousands of ships moved in perfectly coordinated patterns. Human vessels, alien cargo haulers, diplomatic shuttles, and research ships all sharing the same space in harmony. "Tell Archaeological Team 7 to plant some deliberately inconsistent artifacts at Site 12, he decided. Make the dating look confused and contradictory. The Confederation needs more time to adjust before they learn we've been guiding their development for millennia." Back in the council chambers, more disturbing reports were pouring in. Scout Captain Yelnara of the Altarian Navy presented her findings with visible frustration. "Honorable delegates, my ships have investigated over 200 human settlements across 16 galactic sectors. Every single one appears to be connected to a communication network that operates faster than quantum entanglement. They coordinate activities across distances that should require decades of signal travel time." She activated a tactical display showing human ship movements. "Watch this pattern analysis. These human vessels move in perfect synchronization across multiple star systems simultaneously. It's as if they share a collective consciousness, but our scans detect no technological basis for such communication." The implications were staggering. If humans could communicate instantaneously across galactic distances without detectable technology, what else were they capable of? How long had they been watching alien civilizations develop? And why were they pretending to be primitive newcomers to space? Dr. Texrium from the Science Directorate added another piece to the puzzle. "Delegates, I've been analyzing human terraforming techniques. They can transform dead worlds into garden planets in mere decades. The ecological complexity they achieve should take millennia to develop naturally." "But here's the strangest part," he continued, his voice filled with bewilderment. "When we ask human colonists how they do it, they act genuinely confused by our questions. They treat these miraculous achievements as routine, everyday activities. It's as if they don't even realize how impossible their accomplishments are. Counselor. Zethra of the Vorthon Empire slowly stood up, her ancient voice carrying the weight of terrible realization. Fellow beings, she said quietly, I believe we are not the masters of our own destiny that we thought we were. Every technological breakthrough our civilizations have achieved, every seemingly natural step in our development, what if none of it was natural? What if we have been children playing in a nursery, watched over by caretakers who have been hiding in plain sight? The chamber fell into stunned silence as the true scope of humanity's deception began to dawn on the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. They weren't discovering a new species. They were finally noticing their ancient guardians. The discovery happened by accident, as most galaxy-changing revelations do. A Confederation archaeological team was excavating ancient ruins on Kepler 442b, a planet they thought had been abandoned for millions of years. Dr. Kalvex was carefully brushing dirt away from what looked like decorative stone carvings when her scanner started beeping frantically. These aren't carvings, she whispered to her team. These are data storage devices. Within hours, the archaeological site was swarming with experts from every major alien civilization. The predecessor archives, as they came to be called, contained the most advanced data storage system anyone had ever seen. Even more shocking, the information was still perfectly preserved after eons of time. It took 3 weeks to crack the access codes. When they finally did, the galaxy's understanding of itself shattered completely. Council leader Zethra stood before the largest gathering in Confederation history. Every species, every government, every major organization had sent representatives. The ancient Vorthon leader's voice trembled as she began to speak. Fellow beings, she said, her words being translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. We have lived our entire existence as children playing in a nursery designed by our caretakers. The massive holographic displays around the chamber, activated, showing detailed records spanning millions of years of galactic history. But these weren't the histories any alien civilization had written. These were humanity's records, documenting their careful guidance of every major species in the galaxy. The Zephyrian discovery of quantum fold technology in 2847, it was not a breakthrough by their scientists. Human researchers left the crucial formula where Zephyrian explorer Kextol would find it during his routine survey of the Andares system. Gasps and shocked sounds filled the chamber as representatives saw their proudest achievements revealed as carefully orchestrated gifts. The Great Peace Treaty that ended the hegemony wars. The negotiation strategies that seemed to come from inspired diplomacy were actually suggested by human advisors posing as minor trade representatives. More displays showed images that made every alien delegate's blood run cold. Pictures of humans, working alongside their ancestors, humans present at every major historical moment, humans quietly guiding the development of galactic civilization for millions of years. Even the Vorthon Empire's legendary expansion across the galaxy, Zethra continued, her voice breaking slightly, was following carefully prepared star charts that human scouts had been leaving for our people to discover for thousands of years. While the galaxy reeled from these revelations, Director General Kang Min-ho sat in the Human Galactic Council chambers, a room that few non-humans had ever seen. The space was enormous, with holographic displays showing real-time information about thousands of civilizations across multiple galaxies. His deputy, Song Haiyan, monitored the Confederation's reaction through various intelligence feeds. She looked up from her screens with a mixture of relief and concern. They're taking it better than the Andromedans did when they found out, she reported. Only 3 species have requested immediate isolation from all human contact. The rest seem to be moving toward acceptance rather than panic. Min-ho nodded as he reviewed development charts for various alien civilizations. Each species had detailed psychological profiles, cultural analysis reports, and carefully planned integration timelines. The Confederation species were generally marked as ready for Phase 2 integration, meaning they were mature enough to handle partnership rather than guardianship. What about the younger civilizations? He asked. The ones that just achieved spaceflight in the last few centuries? They're not ready yet, Haiyan replied. We'll continue the standard newcomer protocols with them for another few hundred years. Let them think they're discovering everything on their own. The truth revealed in the archives was staggering in its scope. Humanity hadn't evolved on Earth as they had led everyone to believe. They had originated in the galactic core millions of years ago, and had been the first species to achieve true mastery of space and time. But instead of conquering the galaxy, they had chosen a different path. They became gardeners of civilization, carefully nurturing the development of thousands of species. Every alien race's natural evolution had been gently guided by humans who posed as traders, advisors, explorers, or sometimes even primitive species themselves. Back in the Confederation chamber, the revelations continued. Species after species learned that their greatest heroes had been working with human guidance. Their most important discoveries had been carefully timed gifts. Their wars had been prevented or ended by human intervention disguised as fortunate coincidences. But why? Demanded Counselor Crevon, his forearms gesturing wildly. Why guide us? Why not simply conquer us or ignore us completely? The answer came from the archives themselves. Recordings of ancient human councils making the decision that shaped galactic history. A human leader from millions of years ago spoke directly to the modern alien delegates through perfectly preserved video. We discovered long ago that a galaxy with only one intelligent species is a lonely place, the ancient human said. We chose to nurture other civilizations not because we needed servants or subjects, but because we wanted family. We wanted brothers and sisters among the stars. The recordings showed humanity's patient work across eons, preventing species from destroying themselves, guiding them past technological dead ends, helping them solve problems that could have set them back thousands of years. Every species goes through the same dangerous phases, another ancient human explained. Nuclear weapons, environmental destruction, social collapse, technological stagnation. We've learned how to help civilizations navigate these challenges without them realizing they're being helped. Director General Minho stood up and walked to the great window of the council chamber, looking out at the stars that humanity had been protecting for so long. Hayan, he said quietly, begin Phase 2 integration protocols for the Confederation species. It's time they learned they're not just our children anymore. They're our partners in taking care of the galaxy. The truth was finally complete. Humanity hadn't conquered the stars. They had been nurturing them, waiting patiently for their cosmic family to grow up enough to help them care for the countless civilizations still developing throughout the universe.